Hey, what's going on, everyone? NoZoupForYou here, and today we're going to talk about the Iowa-class battleships. And you can see right now I'm playing in the USS Missouri. USS Missouri actually used to be one of my favorite ships in the game, and I mean, it still is. It's kind of a sentimental thing, more or less, at this point. It's really not as good as it used to be, in my opinion. I think really it just got power crapped. I mean, it's still a good ship, though, and the Missouri especially offers some attributes that are really nice, being, one, the only battleship that has radar. Is it still? I don't know. We've had so many come out. Pretty sure it is. But I just don't think it hits as hard as it used to, just because we've had so many other ship lines and other ships come out. But it can still hold its own. It's still a really good ship. And, you know, the Iowa is, for that matter, as well. And I know someone recently asked me, how do you play the Iowa? I'm struggling in it. And, you know, the Iowa is one of those ships you do not want to be caught broadside in. If you're caught broadside, you're just going to get hammered. So you got to be more careful with the Iowa. You have to use terrain to your advantage. You know, you got to make sure you're staying angled. And I mean, leverage that speed on your Iowa. I mean, it's a great flanking ship if you can find a path that gets you away from ships and not in the path of one. But, you know, maybe one day I'll go into it a little more. Missouri's a little different because you have a slightly reinforced frontal hull that allows you to take a little more beating than the Iowa, but you know, they're both good ships. They're both good ships, but that's not what I wanted to talk about with this video. The thing I wanted to talk about this video were the Iowa classes, period. And, you know, fitting for President's Day, I guess, because, you know, a president did go aboard one of them. You know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt took an Iowa-class battleship across the Atlantic and actually was fired upon by a destroyer. That's a different story for a different day, though. But, you know, the Iowa-class battleships are very important historically. They're one of the few classes of battleships that we have all remaining battleships floating. I mean, all four of them. The Iowa, the Missouri, the Wisconsin, and the New Jersey, they're still out there in the United States. You can go tour them if you want, and they hold a very, very special place in the hearts of many Americans and historians and even people abroad as well, just because of what they represent and what they've done. I mean, for all of them, their journeys did not end at the end of World War II. They saw service in Korea, Vietnam, even up to Desert Storm. Desert Storm shelling targets. New Jersey went on to become one of the most decorated ships in the entire Navy and was the most decorated Iowa-class battleship. So everybody has their favorite as well. I mean, some people like the Missouri because Japan surrendered on its decks. You know, some people like New Jersey because they live close to New Jersey. Some people like the Iowa because it was the lead ship in the class. So each one of the ships has their fans. I mean, for me, I'm kind of partial to New Jersey just because I've visited so many times. In many ways, it's kind of my home ship along with the Wisconsin. The Wisconsin actually resides in the state I live in Virginia. But I don't consider it quite my home ship just because I visited New Jersey more. And they're about the same different distance from me. Both of them are. About 3 hours drive both directions. But I've been to New Jersey more, and I just feel like I connect with that ship a lot more, partly because the Wisconsin hasn't been treated the best by the Nautilus down in Virginia. Well, I guess it's Portsmouth at this point, or Norfolk, right across the river, the Elizabeth River from Portsmouth. But, you know, it's not in the best shape. The Iowa is in better shape than the Wisconsin, I think. New Jersey's kind of in a rough part, but they're making it better where New Jersey is. Or the USS New Jersey. Camden's not the greatest place in the world, but just don't get lost around there. But the point I'm trying to make is all four of these battleships are beloved. And still to this day, I see people saying, where is the New Jersey? Where's the Wisconsin? And people argue, okay, well, we've already got the Iowa in game and we've got the Missouri. Why do we need two more Iowa-class battleships? I mean, there's only two more left at this point. Why not put them in? And I know for those of you that live overseas, you probably couldn't care less. I mean, you just couldn't. because these ships don't have the meaning to you that these ships have to us here in the United States. And for that matter, people that live in certain parts of the United States. Whether you live in Virginia, or Iowa, or Missouri, or Hawaii, where the Missouri is now birthed, or USS Wisconsin. I mean, there's reason to love these ships. And I still think there's reason to put the other two in the game. There is. Players want them. Players will buy them. Players will grind for them. Players will pay doubloons for them. I guarantee you. Even if they aren't a fan of a particular one, you're going to want all the Iowa ships. You're going to want them. And, you know, you can argue that, well, they'd just be clones. Not necessarily. I mean, Missouri has radar, which sets it apart from the Iowa. Iowa's just your stock, standard tech tree ship. But you can differentiate the New Jersey and the Wisconsin as well. I mean, just some ideas right here, but for the New Jersey, you can make it secondary focused. You can give it secondaries and hydro, and make it something like a Bismarck, or, well, I guess it would be higher than the Bismarck. Make it like another Pommern. I guarantee you players would love that. Give me a Pommern-esque New Jersey. And yes, we've got the Georgia. I get that. The Georgia's already in the game. But this would essentially be a Georgia with traditional Iowa-class guns. I mean, you don't have to give it speed boost, but I wouldn't complain if you did. So there's one option. You'd have your regular tech tree ship. Then you'd have your radar ship in the Missouri. And then you would have the New Jersey as a secondary ship with hydro. And that leaves the Wisconsin. So what would you do for Wisconsin? Well, there's a couple things you could do for Wisconsin. You could throw defensive fire on it, so you add that skill, or excuse me, that module to it. Or you could add the turret reload boost like the Jean Bart has. I mean, put that on there and that separates it from the rest of the Iowa-class battleships. Of course, you'd have to balance it in other ways, maybe in its range. Maybe in its sigma, I don't know. Make it a little less accurate. But there are ways you could do it. And then you'd have another Iowa-class battleship that's not necessarily a clone. It has a different feature to it and gives players a reason to play it. So you have 4 Iowa-class battleships in the game, all with different features, all offering something different, and all giving players a reason to, I guess, I could say collect them. Is that the right way to go? I guess, because you kind of do collect ships in this game. Ships of a nation, ships of a tech tree line, or just ships in general. Everybody has ships they want, but I personally, for me, would not have a problem having 2 more Iowa-class battleships in the game, rounding out those Iowa-class battleships. And yes, I know there's other ships that we're lacking in this game that are clones or similar to other ones. I mean, everyone wants the USS Johnston. And every year I say I want the USS Johnston. And I still want the USS Johnston. And I have no problem with another Fletcher class coming to the game, so long as it's the USS Johnston. We need that ship. There's other ships we need too, like the Laffey, an Allen Sumner class, a true Allen Sumner class, which is not Pan-Asian. We need that ship. The Yu-Yang, it's great, you know, it's an Allen Sumner class, but it's not American. We need the true Allen Sumner, the Laffey, which survive relentless waves of kamikaze bombers. So yeah, you can say that, well, we need other ships before we get the remaining Iowas, but you know what? I still want them, and I know a lot of you do too. I know a lot of you want to see the Wisconsin or the Whiskey in the game, and I know you all want to see the New Jersey. I do too. I want them, and I want them to have something unique that makes them different from the other Iowas. And I laid out what I think we can have on them that'll do that. And I'd love to see it easy for all the players to get as well. I mean, maybe through free XP or coal or something, and that's not necessarily easy, but it makes it obtainable and reachable. So, yes, we need all 4 Iowas. And I know there's a lot of people here in North America that want them as well. And I laid out how we can get them and what can be done to make them different. But I want to know your thoughts too. Especially those of you here in North America. I know what you all overseas are probably thinking. You don't really care that much about the Iowa class. But those of you in North America, do you want them? Would you take a New Jersey with hydro and secondary loadout? Would you take a Wisconsin with defensive fire and main battery reload booster? Curious, what are your thoughts on how to set those ships apart? What would you do to make them special? And would you buy them or spend the coal on them in the XP? Let me know in the description of this video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on those notifications so you know when other videos come out. Zoop out.